I am the mermaid with the strongest healing abilities in our clan. To protect our family, my father offered me to Lucas. I carefully tried to please him, risking my life multiple times to heal him, yet in the end, just because his beloved said she hated mermaids, he heartlessly poisoned me to silence and even hunted down my kin. I fled to the nemesis of Lucas, touching the man's numb legs, and hastily wrote down a sentence. "Save my people, and I can die for you." He slowly curled his lips. "It's a deal." Later, George, who had been in a wheelchair, stood up and held me as we made a grand appearance at Lucas's wedding. The usually mischievous Lucas actually had reddened eyes when he saw me, his voice trembling. "They lied to me, saying you were dead, and that night, George nearly killed me in bed." In the middle of the night, Lucas dragged me out of my sleep. His cheeks were flushed, his shirt disheveled, and his dark pupils carried a hint of dazed confusion. The heavy smell of alcohol assaulted my senses, and I frowned in discomfort. "My head hurts, Sing." He collapsed beside me, and I shrank back. "Hurry up," Lucas urged. I exhaled a breath, and a soft, faint chant escaped from my lips. Lucas's tightly furrowed brows gradually relaxed and smoothed out. In the end, he just lay like that on my bed and fell asleep. I stopped humming and carefully tried to get out of bed, only to realize Lucas had somehow grabbed hold of my pajamas. I tugged gently, trying to free my pajamas, but the slight movement was enough to wake Lucas. His eyes snapped open, dark with a thick, ink-like anger, as he demanded, "What are you doing? Do you really hate sharing a bed with me that much?" I avoided eye contact and explained, "No, I wanted to cover you with the blanket." The next second, Lucas reached out, wrapped his arm around my waist, and pulled me down to lie beside him. "Keep singing. I didn't tell you to stop." The unfamiliar sensation at my waist made me extremely uncomfortable, but I dared not defy him. The lives of the Mermaid clan were in his hands. The slightest misstep could bring them catastrophic disaster. I was the mermaid with the strongest healing abilities in our clan. Lucas had been frail since childhood, with a stubborn illness entrenched in his body. To protect our family, my father offered me to him. At first, the Lincoln family didn't believe in me, until I cured the chronic headaches that had plagued Lucas for years. After that, I became like a constant companion to Lucas, always by his side. Out of respect for him, others would also treat me with some courtesy. Except for him, singing all night left my throat sore, and my voice was hoarse the next day when I spoke. Lucas woke up, saw my dark circles, and scoffed. "So ugly." I pursed my lips and lowered my head. "Get ready. We're going to pick someone up." "Who?" Lucas curled his lips. "I thought you'd gone mute." After some thought, I finally spoke up. "I don't like those people. Lucas sometimes hangs out with his buddies, like last night. I don't like them. Their jokes always make me feel uncomfortable. So last night I defied Lucas and didn't go with him. Fortunately, he wasn't angry." "Don't worry. It's not them." Lucas seemed to really value this person, changing his clothes repeatedly, and finally holding up two ties to ask me, "Which one matches better?" I pointed at the sapphire blue one in his right hand. Then, he tossed aside the sapphire blue and tied the dark blue one from his left hand. I watched his movements without a word. When Lucas took the carefully prepared bouquet from the servant, I knew, today, he was going to pick up a woman. Arriving at the airport, we waited for a while before a pure and beautiful woman waved at Lucas. As soon as Lucas saw her, his tense face immediately broke into a smile. "Finally decided to come back." His tone was familiar, carrying a hint of barely detectable longing. The woman gracefully accepted his flowers and gave him a hug. "With that tone, anyone would think you're jealous." She released Lucas, then naturally looped her arm through his. Then, she looked at me. "And you are?" Instead of introducing me as he usually would, Lucas leisurely waited for me to speak. I forced a smile. "I'm Tiffany." The woman extended her hand. "Whitney, get in the car. I'll treat you to a welcome dinner." Lucas very gallantly took Whitney's luggage for her and even shielded her head with his hand as she got into the car. Every gesture was considerate and thoughtful. This was something I had never seen before. Inside the car, Whitney and Lucas sat in the back seat, reminiscing about the past. I roughly understood some of it. They were high school classmates back then. Lucas had a crush on Whitney, but due to poor health, he later took a leave of absence, and Whitney also went abroad. That separation lasted 6 years. so she was Lucas's unattainable first love. I've heard his group of brothers mention it. They often compare me to Whitney. Could what Lucas said about the welcoming banquet be? We're here. The car stopped in front of an upscale club, and my lingering hope finally died. This kind of place was bound to have his group of friends. Sure enough, as soon as I entered the private room, familiar faces surrounded me again. I instinctively took a step back, feeling physically uncomfortable. Whitney, on the other hand, effortlessly greeted them and took her seat. This contrast made me seem particularly petty and unsophisticated. I looked at Lucas pleadingly, hoping he would mercifully let me leave, but he didn't even glance at me. His attention was entirely focused on Whitney, watching her every move, afraid she might feel uncomfortable or unhappy. At a loss, I was pulled to sit down, a disgusting hand touching my wrist. Tiffany, my chest hurts. Can you take a look for me? Me too, my leg is in terrible pain, my back. They surrounded me, toying with me. I heard a mermaid's tears are pearls cry for me. Let me see. Where are your scales? All mermaids have reverse scales. Where's yours? Because Lucas was present, they didn't lay hands on me, but their gazes felt like they had already stripped me bare. Lucas, I looked at him pleadingly. He knew I didn't like these people, didn't like this kind of situation. With just a word from him, they would obediently sit back down, but Lucas was cutting fruit for Whitney, someone who's always kept their hands clean, even needing me to peel oranges for them, is now carefully cutting fruit for Whitney, completely ignoring me. In the end, it was Whitney who spoke up. Stop messing around. They're still Lucas's people after all. The people around me finally dispersed, laughing as they spoke. Just a lowly beast folk, if it weren't for her skills. Lucas would have kicked her out long ago. Whitney became intrigued. Oh, a beast folk. Here, beast folk are considered lowly and unwelcome. Yes, the most talented mermaid beast folk, specially sent here to treat Lucas's illness. Whitney's eyes darted, and she stood up. Perfect timing. I'm feeling a bit unwell from the flight. Could you please take a look at me, Miss Tiffany? I instinctively wanted to refuse, but reason told me that refusing would only lead to bigger trouble. Reluctantly, I nodded. I showed it to Whitney, and there was nothing wrong with her physically, yet she acted as if she was in great discomfort. Clearly, she was deliberately making things difficult for me. Seeing her in such distress, Lucas glanced at me and said, "Your singing can soothe." Right, sing. My throat is still sore and scratchy. Lucas, my throat hurts. I tried to reason with him, but to my surprise, Lucas suddenly threw a cup at me. The next second, the cup shattered on the ground, breaking into pieces, and the sharp glass cut my calf. He stared at me, uttering just one word, "Sing." I felt humiliated, biting my lip and refusing to speak. Whitney is clearly fine. Lucas stared at me, the private room deadly silent. He suddenly let out a cold laugh. Got too big for your britches, huh? I froze all over, remembering what my father had said before coming. Tiffany, the future of our mermaid clan rests on you. Remember, control your temper, be obedient, and don't anger the Lincoln family. Understand, the mermaid clan lives near water, but with more and more skyscrapers rising from the ground, water sources being polluted, and lakes and seas being reclaimed, the living space for mermaids is rapidly shrinking. The waters where we live have been purchased at a high price by the Lincoln family for development. In desperation, upon hearing that Lucas was seriously ill, my father offered me to the Lincoln family in exchange for a habitat for the mermaids of our clan. So, I must not anger Lucas. I lowered my head, tears falling to the ground, filled with humiliation. I'm sorry. The melodious singing soothed the emotions of everyone present. In the unnoticed corner, I tightly clutched the hem of my clothes. By the time it was over, my voice was already hoarse. Lucas only noticed me after he had taken Whitney home. Lost your voice? I didn't speak. I was indeed nearly voiceless. He didn't know that every time a mermaid sings, it harms herself, especially someone like me, who never stops day and night. Seeing my silence, Lucas raised an eyebrow, throwing a tantrum. Whitney just got back. Can't you give her a break? It's just singing. Not like it's life or death. I didn't. As soon as I spoke, my voice came out hoarse and rough. Lucas paused, clearly not expecting it to be this bad. He looked at me, moved his lips slightly, and finally said, "The Thomas family's 80th birthday is in 2 days. I'll take you to broaden your horizons." I nodded silently, having no right to refuse at all. Soon, the day of the Thomas family's 80th birthday arrived. Lucas specifically picked out a formal dress for me and had me take his arm. He seemed to be in a good mood. So I thought today might be a bit easier. Just as we were about to leave, Whitney suddenly called Lucas. I don't know what she said, but he left in a hurry. I was left alone in the dress shop. Lucas didn't say where he was going or whether he'd be back. But I can't leave. I have to wait. If he comes back and doesn't see me, he'll definitely get angry. This wait lasted until evening. The banquet was clearly about to begin. I think it's fine not to go, but unexpectedly, Lucas came back. He changed his clothes and was clearly in a bad mood. Let's go. I stood up and obediently got into the car. The car sped all the way to the Thomas family's estate. After getting out of the car, Lucas didn't wait for me and strode off quickly. I didn't know anyone there, and Lucas walked so fast that I soon lost sight of him. I stood in the bustling hall, feeling lost and anxious inside. Miss Tiffany, Mr. Lou is looking for you. Please come with me. The servant led me to the resting suite. And before I even entered, I could hear Lucas's furious voice. Where is she? Get her over here right now. I hurriedly pushed the door open and went in. The moment he saw me, Lucas rushed over impatiently, grabbed my shoulders, his eyes bloodshot. Where have you been? I'm a bit at a loss. You're walking too fast. I can't keep up. How can you be so useless? I shouldn't have brought you along. Lucas releases me, lying back on the sofa, rubbing his temples. Sing. Every time he's in a foul mood, he makes me sing to soothe him, but I could clearly help him more conveniently and quickly, yet he refused. He just had to humiliate me, just like before. I sang all night until my voice was hoarse before Lucas finally fell asleep. I quietly stepped back, only to see a woman standing across the doorway. Hello, my name is Kathy. I nodded. Tiffany. She said she needed my help. And after some questioning, I learned she had a beast man with a congenital defect. Hoping I could cure him, she was the first human I met who was willing to treat an orc. So even though there were risks, I still agreed to her offer. Yet she was concerned about my throat. I smiled and said, it's fine, if you're waiting for my throat to heal. I'm afraid that day will never come, and I need payment. In the Lincoln family, Lucas never let me go hungry or thirsty, but he never gave me extra money either. If possible, I'd like to do something for my people. Kathy was very straightforward and quickly arranged everything. Her orc wasn't difficult to treat, but I never expected Lucas to discover it when I returned. His face was dark as he stood at the entrance of the Thomas family estate. My legs trembled when I stepped out of the car. Lucas was furious. After dragging me into the car, he gripped my shoulders tightly. Tiffany, have I been too lenient with you? How dare you abandon me to treat someone else? Have you forgotten? You were given to me by your father. You're just an object. How dare you act without my permission? This was the first time I'd seen Lucas so furious. I didn't know how to calm him down and could only apologize, but unexpectedly, my apology only made him angrier. You want treatment, do you? Fine, I'll give you all the treatment you can handle. Lucas dragged me to a place where countless humans were gathered. Huddled and trembling, severely ill, Lucas shoved me hard. Heal them, sing. He was in a towering rage at that moment, and I dared not say another word, terrified that my kin would suffer the consequences the next second, so I could only chant over and over again, until my voice was hoarse. Finally, I spat out a mouthful of blood with a, wow. Lucas panicked for a moment. Tiffany, I stubbornly looked at him. Is that enough, you? He looked at me with a complicated expression in his eyes. Lucas, what are you doing? Behind us, Whitney came running over. Lucas's face instantly turned cold again, but his tone was gentle when he spoke to Whitney. How did you get here? I was worried about you. Please don't hurt Miss Tiffany for my sake, okay? I was completely baffled. What do you mean? Lucas gave me a cold glance. Humph, you resented Whitney and incited the mermaid to take revenge on her. If I hadn't arrived in time, I interrupted him. No way, am I an idiot to do such a thing? No wonder Lucas looked off when he came back. Lucas, I've always been by your side. Whitney interrupted me. Lucas, she leaned weakly into Lucas's arms. I don't like mermaids. Lucas held her and said, all right, I'll avenge you. At his command, I was seized by the bodyguards. Lucas, what are you doing? He sneered. You love saving people so much, don't you? Let's see how you'll save anyone after I poison you mute. Oh, and your relatives. His eyes were cold. Capture those mermaids for me. No, I struggled, but could only watch helplessly as those subordinates left. Lucas, you can't do this. I've stayed by your side for 3 years, a full 3 years. You can't treat me like this. Lucas, I beg you, spare my people. They couldn't have done this. Shut up. With a wave of his hand. Someone immediately grabbed my chin. A pungent, burning medicine was forced down my throat, searing like fire. Ah, I opened my mouth, but only a hoarse sound came out. Lou. Ah, the bodyguard released me, and I collapsed to the ground, frantically clawing at my throat in an attempt to vomit out the pills. But all that came out was blood. Lucas looked down at me condescendingly. Tiffany, you're not irreplaceable to me. You should know your place. I looked up at him, feeling nothing but despair. Pushing Lucas away abruptly, I mustered all my strength and ran for my life. Catch her. The sky was overcast with dark clouds, and thunder roared loudly. Soon, heavy rain began to pour. Lucas and Whitney got into the car and drove away. Instinctively, I ran toward my relatives. I had to save them. Ugh, I fell hard to the ground, my palms scraped and bleeding. Rain, tears, and blood mingled as they fell. I had run for so long. Passing by a billboard, I saw a familiar face. It was George. Lucas's arch-rival. My mind quickly searched for information about George. He was disabled in both legs, confined to a wheelchair for years, and had once approached me privately, hoping I would join his side. At the time, I refused. Now, I turned and ran in the other direction. Arriving in front of a villa, I saw George, who had just stepped out of the car. He sat in a wheelchair, a blanket covering his legs. With a bodyguard holding an umbrella behind him, about to push him inside, I opened my mouth. Suddenly remembering I couldn't make a sound, so, I rushed in just as the gate was about to close. Moving too fast, I stumbled and fell beside the wheelchair. Who's there? The bodyguard looked alert. George turned his head, expression calm. Where did this little stray come from? I frantically grabbed the blanket covering George's legs, touched his legs, and hastily wrote down a sentence. Bloodstains and rainwater had soiled the clean blanket, crumpling it into a mess. I looked at George pleadingly, hoping he would understand what I meant. His expression unchanged. He said calmly, I can't feel my legs. Then, his palm slowly unfolded before me. I immediately wrote a sentence on his palm. Save my people, and I can die for you. With my other hand, I pressed his leg, signaling that I could help him. George's clean palm was left with a smudge from my writing. He lowered his gaze to look at it. Unbothered, I looked up at him expectantly. My heart filled with anxiety. Large raindrops pelted my face, blurring my vision. The next second, George took the umbrella from the bodyguard and tilted it toward me. My vision instantly cleared. I saw George slightly curl his lips, his tone carrying a hint of delight. Then, it settled. My heart leaped with joy, and the tension in my chest eased. With this relaxation, the fatigue from overusing my talent surged. Coupled with the burning pain in my throat, I could no longer hold on and fainted. When I woke up again, I was lying in a soft, warm room, instinctively opening my mouth. No sound came out. Only then realizing my throat had been scorched hoarse, I struggled to sit up, the wounds on my palms already bandaged, my body dressed in dry clothes. The spacious bedroom held no one else but me. In my haste, I ran outside without even stopping to put on shoes. Finally, as I ran downstairs, I saw George in the living room. He sat in a wheelchair, flipping through a book, his expression calm. Outside the window, raindrops pattered softly. George closed the book and turned to look at me. You're awake? I nodded, eager to ask about my people, but I just couldn't speak. George seemed to sense my question and said gently, your people are fine, don't worry. I haven't told them about your condition yet. Would you like to see them? I shook my head. Given my current state, it's not the right time to tell them. It would only make them worry. I crouched down beside George, looking at him eagerly, hoping he would share more details. Were any of the clan injured? How did he save them? George lowered his gaze to meet mine and gave a helpless smile. Lucas sent people to capture them, intending to send them to the black market, but I stopped it. Some of the merfolk were injured, but they're all right, all still alive. I promised you, so I wouldn't let anything happen to them. I've already had my assistant negotiate with the Lincoln family about cooperation for that stretch of water, and I've also arranged for people to protect them in secret. Nothing will go wrong. I raised my hand, then stopped. George understood and spread his palm in front of me. Thank you, he chuckled lightly. I've done what I promised you. What about what you promised me? Is your throat okay? Hearing this, I unconsciously touched my neck. There was no pain left at this point. But I couldn't make any sound. I wrote again, I can heal you even without chanting. Chanting is just an aid. With it, things go more smoothly. But it's not essential. I believe you, George answered with certainty. Can your throat be healed? I lowered my eyes and did not respond. Suddenly, a large hand descended from above, gently ruffling my head. It's all right, I'll avenge you for you. I looked up in surprise. Meeting George's calm eyes, he gave me a slight smile. My leg can wait. Focus on recovering first. Tomorrow, I'll take you to see your clan. Quietly, so they won't notice you. My heart trembled, and my nose tingled with emotion. After father sent me to Lucas, I never went home again. It's been 3 years now. No one cared whether I wanted to go home or see my family. George gently wiped the tears from my face with a light, tender touch. It'll be okay. Mermaids possess a certain degree of self-healing ability, the strength of which varies with their innate talent. My voice will heal, it's just a matter of time, but I don't plan to tell George for now. Lucas has already left a shadow in my heart. After resting for a day, I felt much better physically and couldn't wait to follow George to see my people. Mermaids are beautiful and possess healing abilities. But without means of self-protection, their survival is exceptionally difficult. Some people keep mermaids in captivity for entertainment or to exploit their healing abilities. Others hunt juvenile mermaids, as their tails, before they develop legs, can be skinned and sold for a fortune. Returning to the waters where I grew up, I felt tears welling up as I gazed at the familiar houses and faces. Most adult mermaids have left to earn a living elsewhere, leaving only the elderly and children in the waters now. I didn't see my father. George seemed to read my mind and said, your father is in the ancestral hall. I arrived outside the ancestral hall and saw my father kneeling inside, saying something. Only when I got closer did I hear clearly. He was saying, please ancestors, protect my Tiffany, keep her safe and sound. I'm a useless old man, having to rely on my child to secure peace for the mermaids. My child, my heart ached. And I couldn't bear to look any longer. I turned and hurried away. I was afraid I might lose control and rush back in if I stayed. If father found out I'd lost my voice, he'd surely be heartbroken and blame himself. I ran up to George and looked at him. Are we going back now? I nodded. Okay, soon. George and I got into the car and left the waters behind. In the car, George closed his eyes to rest, exuding an air of noble aloofness. I gazed at the scenery outside the window, my heart heavy. Suddenly, George beside me spoke up. I'll take these waters from the Lincoln family. Once you've cured my leg, they'll be yours. I turned back in shock. He meant that he wouldn't use his clan to control me and keep me by his side. He was going to set me free. I urgently grabbed George's hand, seeking confirmation from him. He opened his eyes and nodded at me. I won't confine you to my side. You can go wherever you want. A vast joy spread from my chest to my entire body. For the first time, I felt life was so full of promise. I patted George's leg confidently, assuring him that he could count on me. I am the most talented mermaid in our clan. Any difficult or complicated illness can be resolved in my hands. George looked at my face and slowly curled his lips. You look much livelier now. You were so lifeless before. You should smile more. I felt a bit embarrassed and pressed my lips together to suppress a smile. The scenery outside the window flew by, and suddenly, I caught sight of that street, the street where Lucas forced me to treat those people that day. A car was parked at the intersection right now, and I recognized it as Lucas's at a glance. He sat in the car, his brows and eyes dark, surrounded by an oppressive aura. My hand on George's leg tightened involuntarily. George glanced at me, sensing something, then turned to look back. He explained, Lucas is looking for you. I shook my head nervously, determined never to return to Lucas's side. Don't worry, I've erased all traces of you coming to me that day. He won't find you. Hearing this, I felt slightly relieved. After returning, instead of going to my room, I followed George. He stopped his wheelchair and looked back at me with amusement. Why are you following me? I pointed at his legs. Do you want to treat my leg now? I nodded vigorously. The sooner he's healed, the sooner I can go home. Just thinking about going home filled me with motivation, and I couldn't help but smile. George chuckled. All right then, come with me to the room. George's room was spacious, decorated in simple black, white, and gray tones. Wait a moment, he asked me to wait, then had his bodyguard wheel him into the bedroom. I suppose he didn't want me to see him struggling to get into bed. After waiting for a while, the bodyguard came out. The young master asks you to come in. I nodded and entered George's bedroom. He had changed into fresh clothes and was sitting on the bed, the blanket covering him from the waist down, his hands folded together. His thumb kept rubbing the back of his hand, a clear sign that he was also nervous. I walked over. George said quietly, "This is a disability I was born with. Many doctors and sorcerers have seen me, but none could help. The doctors once suggested to my parents that I undergo surgery to remove both legs, but they didn't want me to live like this forever. So they sought a secret remedy that preserved my leg, though only in appearance." My heart skipped a beat. I had assumed it was due to some postnatal cause, never imagining it was a disability he was born with, which meant he had been confined to a wheelchair his entire life. Often, these inherent illnesses are the hardest to cure, like Lucas's chronic frailty. Taking a deep breath, I pointed at the blanket. George closed his eyes briefly, as if steeling himself. When he opened his eyes again, he threw off the blanket. I sat by the bed, my hand resting on his leg, slowly exploring with my gift. The bedroom was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. After a long while, I withdrew my hand, my mind made up. George was just about to pull up the covers when I quickly stopped him. What? I pointed at his pant leg. You want to see? I nodded, opened my mouth, but not a sound came out. There was no way to explain even if I wanted to, Tiffany, since I could take care of myself. No one has seen my legs, George said in a deep voice. I took out my phone, wanting to type an explanation, but he pressed down on my hand. George's gaze locked onto my face. Are you sure about this? I nodded heavily. I am the most talented mermaid. He stared at my face, finally taking a deep breath. All right then. George released my hand and closed his eyes instead. I set down what I was holding and carefully lifted his pant leg. The leg looked no different from a normal one, but only in shape. In other words, the flesh, blood, and meridians inside were all dead. My hand moved upward inch by inch, and my gaze suddenly fell between George's legs. Doubts suddenly arose. I stole a glance at George, who still had his eyes closed. I quietly averted my gaze, pulled down his pant leg, and then covered him with the blanket. Only then did George open his eyes, loosening his clenched fist slightly. How about it? I nodded with confidence. I lowered my head to type again. I'll draft a plan. Help me gather some medicine and tools, and we'll start the day after tomorrow. For ordinary injuries, they can be healed directly, but his is different. George stared at the words on my phone, his gaze growing increasingly intense. He said with a trembling voice, "Okay," I added, "the process might be a bit painful. If my throat were fine, I could chant to alleviate some of his pain." But George curved his eyes into a smile. "It's fine." I needed tools to reshape George's leg, then use medicine to activate his flesh and meridians. This process was long and painful. Every time he reshaped, George was drenched in sweat, clenching his teeth, but he didn't utter a sound, his eyes brimming with excitement. He said, "These legs have never had any sensation. Now that they can feel pain, it means there's hope." Seeing him like this, I became even more eager to recover my voice to help alleviate some of his suffering. Time flew by, and a week later, George's legs were successfully reshaped. Next comes the activation. This will hurt more. I handed the phone to George. "Take a few days off. Take it easy." His lips were pale, but his eyes brimmed with excitement. "Okay." After comforting George, I returned to my room. I haven't been idle this week either, constantly working on healing my throat. Now, I can produce some single sounds. I believe it won't be long before I fully recover. Touching my throat, I thought of Lucas again. What a coincidence. A trending notification popped up on my phone. It was the Lincoln family urgently seeking top-tier doctors at a high price. No need to guess. It must be for Lucas. Recalling that day when Lucas came looking for me on that street, I smirked mockingly. How cruel he is. To poison me mute without hesitation over those baseless accusations, I stayed by his side for 3 years after all, pulling him back from death's door time and again. Lucas's frail constitution was innate, difficult to nurture, and compounded by his complete lack of restraint, making it even harder. He clearly couldn't drink alcohol, yet insisted on doing so just to appear no different from others, every time. It feels like my head is splitting open, and my whole body is in agony, every time. He would come to me, and now, without me, he deserves to suffer. Just thinking about Lucas in pain now lifts my mood a little, and I can't help but curl my lips into a smile. In the following days, with the help of medication, my throat has recovered. We can also start George's second treatment, but it seems something happened at his company, and he's been very busy these past 2 days. I grabbed the bodyguard and looked at him questioningly. The bodyguard said, "Isn't the young master trying to compete with the Lincoln family for that stretch of water?" The Lincoln family's little heir refuses to budge, so the young master is busy dealing with him. But don't worry, Miss Tiffany, Lucas is no match for our young master. Without Miss Tiffany to treat him, he's nothing. I curled my lips slightly, feeling somewhat pleased. I typed, "George can start the second treatment now. Tell him to come find me when he's done." The bodyguard looked excited. "It won't take long. The young master has been preparing for a long time to acquire that body of water." With that, he hurried away. I frowned. George, preparing for a long time, but I just got here not long ago. Suppressing the doubts in my heart, I patiently waited for George to return. I also kept a close eye on Lucas's news, and one piece quickly topped the charts. The Lincoln family and the Collins family have formed a marriage alliance. Lucas is going to marry Whitney. Does that mean the Collins family will help Lucas deal with George? They've been at odds for a long time, and now with the Collins family involved, George's situation might not be good. I'm a bit anxious, but there's nothing I can do. Suddenly, I thought of someone, Kathy. I invited Kathy out, and her orc was still with her, holding her hand, looking very affectionate. Seeing me, Kathy let out a long sigh of relief. "Ever since the Thomas family left, I couldn't find any news about you. I was so worried." I smiled and said, "I'm fine. I came to you this time because there's something I'd like to collaborate with you on." "Go ahead." I explained my connection with Lucas to her and added at the end, "Before coming here, I checked and found that the Cooper family and the Lincoln family have had no interactions. Although you and Lucas were once classmates, you haven't been in contact for years. So, are you willing to help me?" Kathy's concern was, "You don't like Lucas?" I was a bit puzzled but still nodded. "I don't like him. My father offered me to him to protect our clan, and he treated me poorly. How could I possibly like him? Before, I didn't dare to defy him and obeyed his every word only because my clan was in his hands. I had no choice but to compromise. If we're being honest, I don't just dislike Lucas, I actually detest him." Kathy slammed the table. "I promise you, although I'm not the one calling the shots in my family right now, if I beg my brother, he'll definitely help." My eyes crinkled with laughter. "Thank you, you're my first human friend." I glanced again at Charles, who had remained silent all this time. Unlike last time, he now carried an air of authority. "Are you okay?" He was, after all, the first orc I had ever treated. Charles smiled. "Very well." I never had the chance to properly thank you. I quickly waved my hand in refusal. For some reason, the aura around Charles made me feel a bit intimidated. Kathy patted her chest righteously and declared, "If you ever need anything, just come to me. I'll help however I can." I nodded and said, "Okay." After chatting for a few more words, I finally stood up to bid farewell to Kathy and Charles. With the Cooper family's help, I think George will have a much easier time. A few days later, George sent me a message saying he had won. I felt genuinely happy. Now, as long as his leg is healed, my family and I will no longer have to worry about survival. I can also earn money by saving lives and treating illnesses, just like my aunt. The more I think about it, the brighter and more promising life seems. In the evening, George came back. I immediately went up to him, not in a hurry to speak. I wanted to give him a surprise. George looked at me and chuckled softly. "So happy, huh?" I nodded vigorously. "Have you eaten yet?" I shook my head, wanting to wait for him. "Then let's eat first, and we'll start the second treatment tomorrow." At the dinner table, George ate with elegant and quiet manners. I take out my phone, Did you already plan to compete with the Lincoln family for that stretch of water? George put down his chopsticks, wiped his mouth, and then said, at that time, I couldn't persuade you to come with me, and knowing your relatives were in Lucas's hands, I thought of seizing the water territory to force you to heal me. He hesitated and asked me, am I very wicked? I quickly shook my head. You're very kind, it was just that Lucas forbade me from treating others at the time, and since you didn't get along with him, I had to refuse you out of fear for my clan's safety. George smiled slightly. I know. After speaking, he signaled to his bodyguard. The bodyguard handed me a document. George said, this is the contract for that stretch of water. It's yours from now on. I stared at George in shock. The few thin sheets of paper in my hand felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. But I haven't cured you yet. I believe in you. As I carried the contract back to my room, I was still completely immersed in astonishment. I could hardly believe it. Had we merfolk truly gained our freedom so easily? I was free too, no more worrying anxiously about the safety of my people. No more bending over backward to please others, no more, never again. As I thought about it, my tears fell uncontrollably. Carefully and solemnly putting away the contract, I decided to heal George's leg first, then return with the contract to tell my father and our kin that we no longer need to live in fear. That night, even dreams were sweet. Early the next morning, I went to George's room. He was already prepared. Let's go. I nodded heavily. The pain activated by the drugs far exceeded reshaping. George's face turned pale with pain in an instant. Seeing this, I took a deep breath and opened my mouth. A soft chant flowed out, doing its best to soothe George. He looked at me in shock. You're better now. I nodded, my chanting never ceasing. George's complexion improved somewhat, no longer as unbearable as before. The activation couldn't be completed all at once, otherwise George wouldn't be able to endure it. It had to be done gradually, in the later stages, just like rehabilitation. The focus was on stability, not speed, but I didn't expect that just as it was about to end, there was a sudden loud boom from downstairs. It sounded like a car had crashed into the building. Outside, Lucas's furious voice rang out, Tiffany, get out here. My heart skipped a beat. Why would Lucas be here? George spoke to calm me down. Don't panic. He can't get in. I nodded. Downstairs, Lucas was still calling for me. Tiffany, you're still alive, aren't you? Tiffany, I knew it. George suddenly wanted to take over the water territory because of you. After a burst of noise, there was suddenly silence. The treatment session also happened to end at that moment. I rushed to the window and saw the car and the wall downstairs, both smashed beyond recognition. Lucas was being carried out over a bodyguard's shoulder, motionless as if he had passed out. My anxious heart finally settled down. Behind me, George suddenly said, You care about him. I turned around. No. He gave me a deep look and changed the subject. When did your voice recover? I laughed. A few days ago. I wanted to give you a surprise, so I didn't tell you. Quite a surprise indeed. That's what he said, but I could sense George wasn't happy. But why wasn't he happy? At this moment, the bodyguard came to report that Lucas was here to settle scores with George. When he heard the chanting outside, he immediately recognized me and started going crazy. The bodyguard stopped him and didn't let him come up. Unexpectedly, Lucas turned around, got into his car, and rammed it hard into the building downstairs. I frowned upon hearing this. Madman. George glanced at me and instructed the bodyguard, send him back to the Lincoln family, and increase security around the waters to prevent him from kidnapping someone to threaten us. My heart skipped a beat. This was exactly the kind of thing Lucas would do. The bodyguard responded angrily, yes. After being sent back to the Lincoln family, Lucas remained unconscious for quite some time. His health had always been poor, and this ordeal only made things worse. The Lincoln family was frantic with worry. When Lucas woke up again, it was already midnight. His head was splitting with pain, his body weak and limp. Instinctively, he called out, Tiffany, sing, but the only response was boundless silence. Suddenly, Lucas realized she was no longer by his side. Remembering something, Lucas suddenly sat up and hurriedly got out of bed. He had initially suspected George's motives, wondering why he would compete for that stretch of water without any reason. It was because of her. After all, she was with George. As soon as his feet touched the ground, Lucas's legs gave way, and he collapsed straight down. utterly devoid of strength, lying on the ground. He recalled the chant he had heard during the day. The waters had been stolen, filling him with fury and resentment. In his rage, he went to confront George, only to hear the chant that had haunted him day and night. That chant had accompanied him into countless dreams and soothed him time and again. Without needing any verification, Lucas immediately concluded that the person was with George. He recklessly drove his car into the place, but didn't even catch a glimpse of her. It wasn't until he was carried out of the Williams family estate that the chanting finally stopped. Only then did Lucas belatedly realize she was treating George. Overwhelming resentment made Lucas pound the ground fiercely. He struggled to stand up again, staggering toward the door. Seeing this, the servant rushed to support him. "Young master, where are you going? You can't run around in your condition. Your health." Lucas shoved the servant away forcefully. "I have to find her. I have to find her." His father came out of the house and shouted angrily. "You mistreated her in every possible way when she was here, and now that she's gone, you want to look for her. Where are you going to find her? In the underworld? What are you all standing around for? Hurry up and help him back inside, and call a doctor." The servants quickly grabbed Lucas. He struggled. "Let me go. She's not dead. She's not dead. It's Whitney who's lying to me. I need to find her." Eventually, Lucas was pulled back into the room, and after the doctor arrived, he was given a sedative injection. Lucas stared at the ceiling, his entire body screaming in pain and discomfort, yet he couldn't move a muscle. He fantasized about the time when she was still there, imagining her singing softly by his ear, easing his suffering. "I was wrong. Will you come back?" Lucas closed his eyes, a single tear sliding from the corner of his eye into the pillow, vanishing without a trace. The next day, I woke up early to observe George's leg. He was recovering quite well, and with some nutritional supplements, I believed he would be able to stand up before long. After another activation session, I massaged his leg. "Can you feel anything?" George's eyes lit up. "Yes." "Then I'll give you a few more presses." I pressed with great effort, not noticing George's expression gradually becoming somewhat off. When I looked up, his face was completely red, and he didn't dare to look at me. "What's wrong?" I reached out and touched his forehead. "Why is your face suddenly so red?" George coughed awkwardly twice, his tone stiff. "Ahem, I'm fine. You should go out first." "Really fine?" I didn't believe him. "Really?" George's eyes were evasive. "Go out first," he urged. Seeing this, I thought it better not to ask further and decided to help pull down his pant leg before leaving. Unexpectedly, George quickly pressed my hand down. "Don't." I looked up, my gaze moving higher. "Got it. Bumping this up." Understood instantly. I snatched my hand back, my face burning. "I'm leaving," turned around and ran away as if fleeing. I ran back to my room and patted my burning cheeks. Earlier when I checked, I was worried that George might not be able to perform due to his difficulty in walking. Seems I was overthinking it. This little episode quickly passed, and I didn't dwell on it. After the final activation, I called for the bodyguard, and we carefully helped George up, one on each side. "Try to see if you can put weight on your legs. Don't push yourself too hard." "Okay." George tentatively touched the ground with his toes, gradually pressing down with more weight. He tested his strength cautiously, his eyes growing brighter with each moment. "Tiffany, I can do it, Tiffany." He turned to look at me, his eyes already red. I was also excited. "Let's keep working hard. We'll be able to leave soon." For a while after that, both the bodyguard and I carefully helped George with his rehabilitation. He became more and more adept and could already walk a short distance on his own. That day, George came downstairs, holding onto the railing, each step taken with solemnity, his eyes brimming with unconcealable joy. I was on the sofa and stood up when I saw him descending. At the final step, George's foot slipped. "Be careful." I rushed over to catch him, his tall frame pressing against me, his lips brushing past my cheek. With a buzz, my mind went blank, and my heart raced wildly. George didn't rush to get up. Instead, he just looked at me, resting his chin on my shoulder. I struggled to stand. "Tiffany," a deep, magnetic voice sounded by my ear, making it tingle. I responded sluggishly. Yeah." George took a deep breath and straightened up. The pressure on me suddenly vanished. But before I could even sigh in relief, my shoulders were gripped. George's gaze burned into me, and before he even spoke, I could feel my face flushing. He raised his hand and gently rubbed the spot where his lips had just brushed. All I felt was a tickling sensation on my face. What are you doing? George's hand rested on my shoulder again. It's okay. As the words fell, he suddenly pulled me into a tight embrace, holding me very, very close, just as I was at a loss. Someone burst in from outside. TCH, what are you doing here? George released me and immediately pulled me behind him. I saw clearly that the person approaching was a man with deep-set eyes and a powerful aura, currently holding a woman in his arms. The woman was trembling slightly, appearing extremely uncomfortable. Who is he? George explained. Chandler, my friend. Then, he gave Chandler's companion a cold, silent look of inquiry. Chandler held the woman tighter. His eyes filled with self-reproach. I went a bit too far by accident, and the doctors couldn't do anything. I heard you have a remarkable mermaid here. He glanced at me. I was stunned by his words and couldn't react immediately. George frowned. Beast, Chandler scoffed. Obviously. The conversation left me completely baffled. George said, he's a werewolf. I nodded. Never would have guessed he was a beast man too. I pointed to the woman in Chandler's arms. You carry her upstairs. I'll take a look, thanks. Chandler put the woman down and came downstairs, where George was entertaining him. I went to check on the woman's condition. This is quite brutal. I've heard that some orcs can't control themselves when they're in the heat of the moment. But soon, the woman woke up and seemed startled when she saw me. I quickly reassured her. Don't be afraid. I'm not a bad person. My name is Tiffany. Do you need my help? I glanced meaningfully at the marks on her body. She pursed her lips, her voice slightly hoarse. My name is Lucy. Thank you, but I'm fine. Do you really not need any help? Some orcs enjoy tormenting others. Lucy forced a smile at me. It's fine, I can handle it. All right then, you should rest for a while. Chandler saw that Lucy had woken up, stayed for a while, and then took her away. I was very uneasy. George rubbed the top of my head. Don't worry. Chandler isn't that kind of person. I turned my head and nodded at him. I trust you. Your friend probably isn't that bad either. Thinking about Lucy's situation, I felt a chill run down my spine. George pinched my cheek and said in a low voice, Don't worry, I'm not as beastly as he is. I suddenly realized what he meant and took 2 steps back, exclaiming, What nonsense are you talking about? I turned and ran away. Lucas had been quiet for a while, then suddenly announced his engagement to Whitney. George asked me, Do you want revenge? I was puzzled. How? He smiled mysteriously. On the day of Lucas's wedding, George had me dress up grandly and made a high-profile appearance at his wedding with me in his arms. The wedding venue was lavishly decorated, with countless guests in attendance. The moment he entered, Lucas spotted me, his already unsmiling face turning even paler. George wrapped his arm around my waist, smiling conspicuously. Congratulations. Lucas ignored his provocation, staring straight at me instead. His usually mischievous eyes suddenly reddened, his voice trembling. They lied to me, saying you were dead. Lucas. Whitney, seeing this, tried to reach for Lucas's arm. He pushed her away abruptly. Lucas stumbled toward me in a panic. Tiffany, please come back. Okay, come back to me. I can't live without you. George reached out and stopped Lucas. I looked at him coldly. Don't be so full of yourself. Lucas, no, Tiffany. Lucas stammered. I didn't mean to treat you like that, but you don't like me. Why don't you like me? You like me. I frowned. This was simply outrageous. Lucas nodded bitterly. I just found it amusing. Isn't it the one beside you that you like? Whitney tried to speak but was restrained by George's men. I looked at George curiously, wondering what he was really up to. Lucas explained bitterly. No, Tiffany. After you left, I realized. Enough, don't say any more. It's disgusting to hear. I quietly pinched George's arm, urging him on, unexpectedly. This small action was noticed by Lucas. His face turned pale in an instant, and his lips trembled. You, and him. George didn't bother with words. With a wave of his hand, evidence of Whitney's crimes was displayed on the large screen behind them, including the bribery of other mermaids to frame me. The police also swarmed in simultaneously. Whitney screamed and cried, but was still mercilessly taken away by the police. That wasn't the end of it. The Collins family soon received the news as well. The Collins family has gone bankrupt. George had been investigating the Collins family for a long time, just for this day. As for Lucas, he's not much better off. He was also taken away by the police. The charges, suspected of engaging in group debauchery. I understood. He often hung out with his group of friends, and since they were investigated, he couldn't escape either. When Lucas was taken away, he kept looking back at me, Tiffany. I paid no attention. His body was already at its limit. And it was only for my sake that he held on until now. Now, I fear his time is running out. He should have died long ago, after enjoying the drama. The guests left satisfied. On the way back, George held my hand, squeezing it left and right, in an extremely good mood. I tried to pull my hand back, but he grabbed it firmly. He looked up at me. You don't like Lucas, do you? My eyes widened instantly. Even you think I like him. Do I look like some kind of masochist to you? George curled the corner of his lips. Then do you like me? What? The topic shifted too quickly. I didn't react in time. George pulled me, seating me on his lap, and ambiguously wrapped his arm around my waist. Tiffany, I'm not like Lucas. You don't need to worry. I know. George leaned in, his nose lightly touching mine. So, do you like me? This is so sudden. The next second, my lips were lightly pecked. I like you, Tiffany. Give us a try. He tenderly kissed the corner of my mouth. My heart raced. My mind went blank, and without realizing it, I responded with a soft, George smirked, trying it like this. No regrets allowed. He kissed me deeply on the lips. That night, I felt I would die in George's bed. In a daze, I recalled the first words I spoke when I met him. Save my people, and I can die for you. How ironic. Tiffany, I'll go back to the water realm with you tomorrow. Okay, George coaxed me in a hoarse voice. I nodded impatiently. Okay, taking him back would count as meeting the parents, right? After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.